It was a typical afternoon for Emma, who was leaving the gym with her headphones on, her mind focused on the day's to-do list. At 17, her routine was intense, divided between school and her commitment to the gym, which she loved. But that day, something different caught her attention. On the sidewalk in front of the parking lot, a homeless man stood beside a shopping cart. Inside, 6 little puppies were snuggled up, one on top of the other. The man, wearing worn-out clothes and a yellowed smile, raised his hand and waved at her. "Miss, would you like to take one of these? They need a home," he said, his voice gentle, almost pleading. Emma paused for a moment, surprised by the offer. The puppies were adorable, with bright eyes and drooping ears, but her mind quickly remembered the small apartment she shared with her parents. There was no space for a dog there, let alone a playful little puppy. "I live in an apartment. I can't," she responded, somewhat embarrassed, taking a step back. "I understand," said the man, with a look of understanding mixed with sadness. "But if you change your mind, I'll be here tomorrow too." Emma forced a polite smile, nodded, and headed towards her car. On the way, she glanced at the puppies once more, and something tugged at her heart. The look of those puppies, mixed with the gentleness of the man caring for them, remained etched in her mind. Still, she pushed the thought aside, focusing on the road ahead. Little did she know that this brief encounter would mark the beginning of a major change in her life. The next day, the sun was shining brightly as Emma parked her car in the usual spot in front of the gym. Her routine seemed intact, but something about that afternoon made her look at the sidewalk almost instinctively. There was the homeless man again. However, this time he had fewer dogs. In the shopping cart, only 3 puppies remained. Emma felt a pang in her chest. Were the others adopted? She thought, feeling a mix of relief and concern. The man saw her and, just like the day before, waved with a tired smile, offering the puppies again. She hesitated for a moment, her heart beginning to give in to the situation that disturbed her more than she had imagined. Deep down, it wasn't just about the puppies. There was something in the man's eyes, a mix of hope and resignation, that touched her in a way she couldn't quite understand. Emma looked away and went into the gym, trying to push the thoughts aside. Throughout her workout, however, the image of the puppies stayed in her mind. How are they doing? Where will they go if no one adopts them? These thoughts kept circling in her head, leaving her uneasy. When she finally left the gym, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. As she walked back to her car, she glanced at the man again. Now he had only one puppy by his side. The man was sitting on the ground, gently petting the puppy, but he looked tired, as if the weight of the days was bearing down on his shoulders. Emma felt a stab of sadness. Something inside her said that this scene wasn't normal, that maybe the puppies weren't simply being adopted. But once again she resisted the idea of getting involved. She got into her car and looked straight ahead, ready to go on with her life. However, before starting the engine, her gaze was drawn to the rearview mirror. The homeless man was standing, tying the last puppy to a post with a thin rope. When he was done, he took one last look at the puppy and slowly walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the streets. Emma's heart tightened, outraged by the scene. That puppy, now tied up, looked so vulnerable, so lonely. She felt a wave of empathy she could no longer ignore. Without thinking twice, she turned off the car and ran toward the puppy, her heart racing. At that moment, Emma knew she couldn't leave it there. A decision was about to be made, and that decision would change her life forever. The puppy, tied to the post, looked around, disoriented, as if searching for the man who had just left him. Emma stopped in front of him, her heart racing. The scene before her was unbearable. The small puppy, with golden fur and a confused expression, wagged his tail timidly when he saw her, as if he understood this could be his only chance. "What now?" Emma murmured, almost to herself, looking at the puppy. She had never seriously thought about having a pet, let alone rescuing one in such a situation. But something inside her had already changed. The knot in her stomach and the tightness in her chest made it clear. She couldn't just walk away. For a moment she hesitated. What would she tell her parents? How would the puppy adapt to the small apartment? These questions arose but were quickly drowned out by a stronger feeling. The sense that this was the right thing to do. She couldn't ignore what she was feeling. Without thinking further, she knelt down beside the puppy. His eyes were sweet, full of innocence, and he wagged his tail more enthusiastically as she approached. With trembling hands, she untied the rope that held him to the post. As she did so, she felt a wave of relief as if she was freeing something much bigger than just a puppy. "Come with me," she said softly, petting the puppy's head. He followed her without hesitation, as if he knew he was going home. Emma led him to the car, placed him in the back seat, and sat behind the wheel, unsure of what would come next. The puppy curled up on the seat, watching her with curious and grateful eyes. As she drove towards the apartment, a mix of excitement and nervousness took over her. Emma's mind was full of thoughts. Can I handle this? Did I do the right thing? But when she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the little puppy curled up on the seat, her uncertainty began to fade. A gentle smile appeared on her lips. "I'm going to call you Marley," she said almost without thinking. The name seemed to come from within, as if she already knew that's what he had to be called. Marley lifted his head when he heard his new owner, wagging his tail more vigorously. Emma chuckled softly, already feeling that this moment had changed her life in ways she didn't yet fully understand. When she got home, she had to explain to her parents what had happened, which wasn't easy. But when they saw Marley's sweet eyes, they couldn't resist either. In just a few minutes, Marley seemed to have won over not only Emma's heart but everyone around him. That night, as the puppy slept at the foot of her bed, Emma felt a different kind of peace. For the first time, she understood what it was to do something genuinely selfless, without expecting anything in return. And although she didn't know what the future would hold, she was sure of one thing. Adopting Marley was the best choice she had ever made. The first few days with Marley were a period of adjustment, both for Emma and for him. The puppy, once scared and vulnerable, now began to explore his new home with curiosity. The small apartment, which Emma had thought was unsuitable for a dog, soon became an adventure playground for Marley. He sniffed every corner, explored every object, and always ended up coming back to her, as if to make sure he was no longer alone. Emma in turn was delighted. All her fears vanished as Marley filled her life with joy. He followed her around the apartment, with light paws and a constantly wagging tail, as if his greatest pleasure was just being by her side. In no time they developed a routine together. In the mornings, Marley would wake her up with licks on the face and jumps on the bed, eager for the walks that had become their favorite part of the day. In that small neighborhood near the beach, they found a peace Emma had never experienced before. Each trip to the sand was a new discovery for Marley, who chased the waves, dug holes, and sometimes just stood still, feeling the wind on his face. The parks also became their favorite destinations. There Marley seemed to come alive. He ran freely, played with other dogs, and always returned to her, as if to make sure she was there, sharing the moment with him. The sparkle in his eyes was contagious, and Emma felt something inside her light up every time she saw him happy. It didn't take long for Marley to become her best friend, the loyal companion who was always by her side, no matter the situation. When Emma came home from school exhausted, he was there, lying at her feet as if he knew she needed peace. When she was sad, Marley seemed to sense it, offering his head for a pet as if to say, "I'm here." He didn't need to speak. The love he showed in every gesture was more than words could express. Over time, Emma realized that Marley wasn't just a part of her life. He was transforming it. She began to see the world differently, with more empathy and patience. The dog, with his simplicity, taught her what genuine love is. A love that expects nothing in return, that knows no bounds, that simply exists. Marley was a gift. Every moment with him made Emma feel grateful for the choice she had made that day when she saw him tied to the post. She realized that chance had brought her to him, but what they built together was the result of something much greater. Time passed and the bond between them grew even stronger. The sunny days on the beach, the afternoons at the parks, and even the nights when Marley curled up at her feet while she studied became part of their story. They had become inseparable, and the happiness he brought was a constant in her life. Marley was more than just a dog. He was a daily reminder that the best things in life happen when we open our hearts to the unexpected. And for Emma, that was the greatest gift she could have received. The years passed and the bond between Emma and Marley only grew stronger. The puppy grew into an adult dog full of energy and loyalty. Their lives always seemed to follow in harmony, as if they were destined to be together, sharing moments that became precious memories in Emma's heart. Marley was her constant companion during crucial moments in her life. He was there when she graduated from high school, feeling uncertain about the future, silently licking her tears. He was there when she started college, excited as if he understood the importance of that new chapter. And he was by her side when she went through difficult relationships, listening to her silent confessions, offering comfort just with his presence. Over time, Emma moved out of her parents' apartment and into her own home, a small but loving space where Marley was always the center of everything. The dog accompanied her on all new adventures, whether it was a walk in a different park, a quick trip out of town, or even endless nights of studying. He had become her confidant, the silent friend who never judged her, always ready to share any moment, big or small. Now, at 30, Emma looked at Marley and saw not just her dog but a life companion. Marley, with his fur already turning gray, showed signs of aging. He no longer ran as he used to on the beaches or in the parks. The walks, once long and full of energy, were now slower and shorter. Even so, he still had the same sweetness in his eyes and wagged his tail every time he saw her. As the days passed, Emma began to notice deeper changes in Marley's health. He slept more, his joints seemed stiff, and occasionally he refused to eat. Each time this happened, a sense of fear grew in her heart. She knew time was running out for him and the idea of losing him was unbearable. One afternoon while they were at the park, Marley stopped in the middle of the walk and sat down on the grass, panting. Emma knelt beside him, gently stroking his head. He looked at her with the same eyes as always, full of love and understanding. In that look, Emma felt that Marley was slowly saying goodbye. She sat down next to him in silence, watching the horizon as the sun began to set. Marley lay down on the grass beside her, resting his head on her lap, just as he used to when he was younger. Emma's tears started to fall silently as she stroked his soft fur. "Thank you for everything, Marley," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. She knew their time together was running out, but she also knew that every moment they had shared was an invaluable gift. Marley had taught her what true love was, the kind that demands nothing in return, only gives. He had transformed her, and that was something she would carry forever. That night, as Marley slept at the foot of her bed as he always did, Emma stayed awake for a long time watching him. She knew that the cycle of life was coming to an end for him, but she also knew that the legacy of unconditional love Marley would leave in her heart would never die. And as painful as the thought of saying goodbye was, Emma found comfort in knowing that, for all those years, Marley had been by her side, teaching her to love and be loved, without conditions, without limits. Marley's days were numbered, and Emma knew it. Her beloved companion no longer had the strength he once did, and the vitality that had accompanied him for so many years now faded with each new morning. But despite the pain this reality brought, Emma chose to live every moment by Marley's side with gratitude and love. It didn't matter how much time was left. What mattered was that they were together. On a quiet morning, Marley didn't get up when Emma woke up. He remained lying down, breathing with difficulty, and his eyes, which always greeted her with enthusiasm, now looked tired. Emma knelt beside him, gently stroking his fragile body, feeling tears well up in her eyes. Her heart ached, but at the same time she knew he had lived a life full of love. "I'm here, my friend," she whispered, gently holding his paw. I will always be here." Marley looked at her, and in that moment, it seemed that a deep understanding passed between them. He knew it was time to go, but he also knew he was leaving Emma with something no amount of time could erase: the unconditional love he had shared with her. That afternoon Marley passed away. The pain of the loss was immense, and Emma cried for hours, holding him in her arms one last time. The emptiness he left felt unbearable, but along with the pain, there was also immense gratitude. Marley was not just a dog. He had been her companion, her friend, her teacher. He had shown her what true love was, the kind that expects nothing in return, that simply exists to be shared. In the days that followed, Emma felt Marley's absence in every corner of the house. The silence seemed heavier, and the routine was no longer the same. The walks, once full of joy, were now lonely. But gradually she began to realize that Marley was still with her, in a different way. He was in her memories, in every smile he brought, in every time he comforted her when she needed it most. And he was, above all, in Emma's heart, where the love he had taught continued to live. Marley had left a legacy, the legacy of unconditional love that transcends time and loss. As the months went by, Emma began to feel that, despite the pain, she had learned something essential from Marley. He had taught her to love, to be patient, to be grateful for the little moments. She carried with her the certainty that the love he gave her would never leave, and in some way that comforted her. On a sunny morning months after Marley's passing, Emma walked alone on the beach, her bare feet touching the warm sand. The wind gently brushed against her face, and she took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs. At that moment she realized something. Although Marley was no longer physically by her side, he would always be present in every smile she shared, in every act of kindness she practiced, in every choice she made guided by love. She looked toward the horizon where the sea met the sky and smiled. Marley was gone, but the legacy of unconditional love he had left in her heart would live on forever. After all, what is love if not this? A feeling that remains, even when the one who inspired it is no longer present. Emma knew that Marley would be with her every step she took from now on, not as a companion by her side, but as a constant reminder that true love never dies,